boys and girls, ladies and gents, roll up, roll up. It's time for that Tojo Fitness podcast again on this amazing Thursday. And today, we're going to be looking at exercise intensity.
Exercise intensity. How hard can you go? Let me ask you a question. If you were doing a set of dumbbell curls, which rep is the one that makes the muscle grow? Number 1 or number 10?
Do I get a chocolate button if I get the right answer?
You do.
All right, I'm going to go number 10.
And you would be almost right.
Oh,
it's a trick question.
So close.
The answer is number 11. The one that causes the muscle to grow is the one that you didn't think you could squeeze out, but you managed to squeeze it out nevertheless. Everything else is a build-up to that moment. That's the growth moment. The growth moment is when your muscle is exhausted and you push it beyond that point of exhaustion. So to have any desired effect, exercise has to be conducted with enough regularity and enough intensity to initiate what we call an adaptation response. An adaptation response simply means that, let me give you an example. If you take a car that can travel at 100 miles an hour and you try and drive it at 110 miles an hour, it's going to break down.
And also you might get a speeding fine.
You get that as well. If you take your body and your body can travel at 100 miles an hour and you push it, the equivalent to 110, it will become a 110 mile an hour body. It will increase in its capacity, and that's the adaptation response. It's the body's way of saying, if they do this again, I want to be prepared, I want to be ready. So if they want me to lift a 10-pound dumbbell for 10 reps, I'm going to make it so I could lift for 11 reps if they wanted me to. Yeah. So I've got a little bit of reserve in the tank.
Yeah.
And then, so the way it does it is to increase the amount of muscle fibers, increase the size of the muscle fibers, and grow the muscle. And that, in essence, is what exercise, particularly weight training, is all about.
Yeah, so especially people who want to tone up. So all of our clients, I'd say, why would you want to exercise? What do you want to get out of our fitness sessions? I really want to tone. And whilst it may sound like really boring, but you have to do the same exercise time and time again. So that's where your regularity comes in. And every time you have to push it more and more, a little bit further than what you did last time. So you have to work the muscle harder than what it's actually been used to the last time you did it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And it only has to be harder than it was last time. So, for instance, somebody new to exercise will require very little intensity to get an adaptation response. If you've been sitting as a couch potato for the last year, then simply getting out of bed and walking up and down the stairs is going to give you
enough.
It's going to give you an adaptation response.
Yeah.
If, however, you're used to running 5 kilometres, if you want to increase your fitness or increase your muscularity or increase the fitness of your body, you're going to have to run either more than 5 kilometres or you're going to have to run it faster. One of those two things. So somebody new, an intermediate trainer, is going to need to work harder and work longer, which is why we always change our programs around. We'll keep you on the same program for a while and we'll keep swapping and changing it out to stop your body settling into this, I've adapted.
It gets used to it, doesn't it? It's like, I know what to expect now. And so you'll do the same exercises time and time again. And some people will say, I didn't get DOMS this time. And there's almost that disappointment from not being hurt. But that's at the time that we'll actually then start mixing up your training. And it kind of taken the body by surprise, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you become an advanced trainer, then that will require some really advanced techniques, things like force negatives and things like that, which if you try and get somebody who's new to exercise doing that, they're going to be in hospital. But somebody who's got their body's already adapted to a lot of hard work, you're going to have to find a way to up the ante. And so one of the great things about having a personal trainer is that they have a catalogue of hundreds and hundreds of ways in which they can up the ante for you every time. And they can stop you sort of lulling into that, I'm just going to do what I did last time. Because if you do, you're going to get no adaptation response.
And a lot of people that we train will actually say, do you know what? I actually wouldn't push myself as hard if you wasn't here. And so obviously we're there to kind of like push you that little bit further, that one more rep, that extra weight. And the thing is that we get to know your body and you get to know your body as to where your adaptation response actually comes from. Anyway, how hard is hard enough?
Said the man who invented Viagra. Explaining...
Wow, I can't believe you just went there. Oh my gosh.
It's early morning. So we want to explain the principle
Moving on.
of working weight. What is working weight? And this is a phrase we use an awful lot. Working weight.
WW.
Yeah, if you get one of our programs, it will say something like, we want you to do 10 reps at WW, which is 10 reps at working weight. So working weight is your baseline. Working weight is the amount of reps you can do in good form with a certain weight. So for instance, if in your exercise program it says we want you to do 10 reps at WW, that means that whatever weight you pick, your 10th rep will be the last one you could get out in good form. Now, if you could manage to get out 15 reps, then your WW needs to go up. So if you're using 10 kilogram dumbbells and we're asking you to do 10 reps, if you can do 20, you need to go up to 12 kilo dumbbells. If, on the other hand, you're asked to do 10 reps and you can only get out 6, you probably need to lower your weight. So your working weight is whatever weight is suitable, which enables you to do the required amount of reps, which normally is between 8 and 12, something like that. The required amount of reps in good form, and the last one to be a real effort, but you can still manage to do it without breaking into bad habits.
Yeah. So your working weight also comes into play after you've done your warm-up set. So a warm-up set is the most, I would say, probably one of the most important sets that you can do. And the reason we do a warm-up set is to actually avoid injury of the muscle. If we was to take you straight in to a working weight without warming up that muscle, more than likely you're going to tear or get an injury. So a warm-up would probably be about 50% of your workout weight, of your working weight. So you take your working weight and you half it. Pretty much you make it pretty easy because you want to get your body used to doing the form. You want to get your body used to doing the range of motion that it needs to do with little effort, but enough that you're able to do higher reps, so more volume, to get the blood flowing through that muscle, ready to crack on with your working weight.
Yeah, totally right. So if we were doing bench press, we might ask you to do a set of 20 reps at 50% WW. So if you're bench pressing 60 kilos, you might then bench press 30 kilos for 20 reps as a warm-up. You may have a second warm-up there, which might be 15 reps at 75% WW.
2 warm-ups, yeah.
Yeah, if it's a compound movement, if you're cold.
If I'm squatting, I'll do like a couple of warm-up sets.
Sort of build into it. So that's working weight. Working weight, the amount of weight, the maximum amount of weight you can handle, which enables you to do the correct amount of reps in good form.
Yeah.
So let's talk now about the principle of progressive overload. What's progressive overload? Progressive overload is this idea that I have to constantly keep upping the ante.
Right, progress is progress.
Progress is progress. And I'm constantly looking at overloading the muscle. So for an adaptation response, you said this yourself just a moment ago, Joe, all you need to do is a little more intensity than last time.
Yeah.
So if I could do 10 bicep curls with 10 kilogram dumbbells, all I need to do is do 11 this time, and I've got an adaptation response.
Yeah.
Or I could do the same amount and up the weight. So either way, I could either up the weight or I could up the amount.
I actually like calling them a personal best, to be fair. So you're like, I've just hit a PB. I did more than last time. And that's a good way of like celebrating that.
Yeah, and you should be hitting these every workout.
Yeah.
It might not be every exercise in that workout, but you're always trying to find a way of making that overload just a little bit more. So you always want to be going the next mile, just a little bit further, a little bit harder, a little bit better contraction. So because you only have to exercise a little more intensity than last time, so one of the problems now, we're coming back from a lockdown.
Oh my gosh. How many people have got DOMs going back to the gym?
Oh, yeah, I'm putting my hands up.
Yeah. I feel broken.
So we've all probably lost quite a bit of muscle mass, quite a lot of fitness. But if we jump straight back in where we were before, we will get an adaptation response. But your body can only adapt incrementally. It can't make sudden jumps. So if you were squatting with, let's say, 60 kilos before, and to get that adaptation response, you would perhaps then need to go to 62 kilos. After a layoff, you don't need to squat with 60 kilos to get an adaptation response. Your body's got used to just, you might have been squatting at home just with, your 2-year-old kid on your shoulder or something like that. So you squatting with 20 kilos or something. So all you need is to go up to 25 kilos. So after a layoff, you just need a little bit more, and that will create the same adaptation response as you would if you suddenly went in and went crazy and killed yourself. You might feel better psychologically for doing that, but it's actually not going to create a bigger adaptation response, because an adaptation response is small and incremental, which is why we raise our weights in small incremental amounts. But of course, the thing is, you can't just keep lifting heavier and heavier and heavier. If you do, especially as you get older, you're just going to end up with injury.
Oh my days, yeah. It's like the older you get, the more you have to work around all your little niggles and stuff. I think what we'll do, we're actually going to do a podcast on how to work around injuries.
I think that'd be a great one.
Yeah.
It's like driving a classic car.
Yeah.
They're great. They look fantastic, but you just have to be a little bit careful with them. You just can't do what you did before. Another reason is because very long, very heavy workouts are very taxing on the central nervous system. And so your body, you're working out the muscles, and the muscles are getting fatigued, but your central nervous system is also getting fatigued. And your muscles can recover very quickly. But when your central nervous system gets depleted with very long, very heavy workouts, it can knock you out for days. So sometimes, if you worked out really hard for a few days and you feel a bit fluey, the central nervous system's taken a hit. So you need to take some time out. So how do we increase intensity without increasing either the amount of time or the amount of weight? So the amount of time is an obvious one. The amount of reps we do is an obvious one. The amount of weight is an obvious one. But there are many things we can do. Actually, there's about 30 or 40 different principles that we can do to create this adaptation response. They're hacks, if you like. And we're going to share with you now our 7 favourite intensity principles.
We won't be sharing 30 or 40, don't panic.
No. These are 7 easy peasy ones. Anybody can do these. They're not going to cripple you. There are a whole bunch of very, very super advanced techniques, which we'll do in another podcast. But these are ones which you can do. If you just get to the gym and you're not going to increase your time there, you're not going to increase your weight, particularly for whatever reason, but you can always throw these into the mix.
So firstly is to become a bit more strict with your form. One of the things I think naturally our bodies will do is they want to make sure that we do every exercise and make it as easy as we can.
Yeah.
Because the body doesn't really like a lot of hard work, does it? And so it finds workarounds. And it finds workarounds by putting your form off just a little bit. So, for example, if you're coming into a squat and you have really, really tight hip flexors and really, really tight hips, what it will do is it will bend your upper body forward as you come down into that squat, which actually means you don't come into a proper squat at all. So being a bit more strict with your form means that we actually do correct form right at the start. And that will probably be a whole new world for you, especially if you're squatting and all of a sudden you start squatting properly. Oh my gosh, like the response is huge.
I've worked with some very advanced trainers, And I've sat with them and I said, right, show me perhaps we're doing something like dumbbell flies. And I remember one person I was working with, I said, show me your dumbbell flies. And he got these huge weights and started doing these dumbbell flies. And I said, I want you to halve the weight. And he looked at me as if I was crazy. And then I said, I want you to do it the way I tell you. And I sat behind him and coached him doing really super strict dumbbell flies. And with half the weight, he could only get half the amount of reps he could with the heavier weight being not strict. So becoming strict with your movement is really, really good. Yeah.
So also, secondly, this is one of my favourite ones, and I'll say it so many times. Squeeze the muscle as you contract, but as you squeeze the muscle, put your mind into what the muscle's doing. So let me ask you a question. Are your muscles part of your body?
Uh-huh.
Is your mind part of your body?
Yes.
So you live in the same house, right?
Yeah.
Your mind and your muscle need to start talking to each other.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you are, perhaps, let's just take the bicep curl. Everyone loves a bicep curl. If you're doing bicep curls and you're just going through the motions, you're looking out the window, you're not paying particular attention, your muscle isn't going to respond as well as to if you are paying attention to it. And when I mean paying attention, I mean, what does it feel like when you contract? Look at the muscle. Where does the peak happen in your curl? Perhaps that's the point that you need to stop the curl. So instead of bringing it all the way up to the chin, you notice the peak and you go, that's the point of contraction. That's where I'm going to squeeze. And so actually, the way you link your mind and your muscle is you start thinking about what you're doing. You come back to the present moment. You bring your thoughts back together. You recollect your focus. And you look at the bicep and you say, wow, that's the point in which the head gets really, really big. That's the point in which I lose the contraction. And so all of a sudden, you've linked. The two people living in the same house have actually started talking to each other.
And if you speak to pro bodybuilders, they'll tell you this again and again. If you've ever watched Kai Green working out...
monster.
I mean, the guy he's a monster. But the way he works out, it's like meditation. It's very quiet, very controlled, very thoughtful. And often he's got his eyes closed because he's visualising exactly what's happening. He's not making up his shopping list. He's not thinking about, his Spotify list or something like that. Yeah. He's actually imagining those muscle fibres firing up. And it makes a huge difference. And this is another reason why we have mirrors in a gym. It's not just for vanity purposes. It's so you can watch and see the muscles contracting and understand what's actually happening. And by putting your mind in the muscle, if you know it's your bicep that's meant to be doing the work, then you'll tell if your shoulders are taking over. People are normally either shoulder dominant or chest dominant. So people who are shoulder dominant are going to find that when they try to exercise chest, their shoulders take over. If your mind's in the muscle, you're going to avoid that problem. Equally, if you're chest dominant, every time you do overhead press, your chest's going to take over. So if you know that it's all about your mind in the muscle, you're going to know as soon as your chest takes over, your mind's going to go, I understand what's happening here, swap back to those deltoid muscles. Let's talk about changing the speed of the exercise. Number 3, change the speed. Now, sometimes you can just slow it down. I mean, have you ever done squats which are really slow? Super slow squats are just terrifying things. Slowly, slowly, slowly down, slowly, slowly, slowly up. You see, the reason why we slow exercises down is it takes momentum out of it. We've all seen people doing rows and their back's going backwards and forwards and they're throwing themselves into it and their muscles actually aren't doing the work. What's happening is physics is just taking over and momentum is doing the work. And of course, that's great if you want to look like a prat in the gym, but it's not going to help you build muscle. If you watch people who know what they're talking about, they'll be very, very strict almost all of the time. Now, sometimes One advanced method is cheating, but we won't come to that. We want you to learn to be very, very strict and feel things. And to do that, most often you have to slow things down, but not always. So equally, doing squats, which are very, very fast, on the positive, we're coming up from the ground, an explosive squat can be just destroys your quads. So thinking in terms of, can I change? Remember, we're looking for an adaptation response. So if my body's been used to working on squat on the basis of 2 seconds down, 2 seconds up, it's already adapted to it. So I have to throw something in. What if I did 4 seconds down, 4 seconds up, or 10 seconds down and 10 seconds up? As soon as I do that, I've created an adaptation response because my body has to do something about it, and you'll know it the next day with the way you feel. Change the speed of the exercise.
And number 4, we're coming into something called slow down the negatives. Now, let us explain what a negative is. A negative isn't, the old style photos that we used to have. Goodness, you used to take those into the Kodak shops, didn't you?
Forgot about negatives.
Oh my gosh. And then you used to try and see your pictures on the negatives. Anyway, for those who are of the millennials, you have no idea what I'm talking about. So a negative is, I think the only way I can describe it, the positive is the explosive part of the movement. So it's the movement itself. For example, if I'm laying down on a hamstring curl machine, I'm laying on my front, and the positive is bringing that machine up to my bum.
Yeah.
So it's the contraction.
Yeah.
The negative is placing that machine back to the start.
Or if you're using, let's go back to squats. So the positive is standing up and the negative is going back down. And we always say you breathe out on the positive and in on the negative. It's one way of remembering it.
So going back to the example of the hamstring curl machine, when I say slow down the negative, it's for me to place that machine back to the start, for me to place my legs back into that starting position. I slow that movement down. I take momentum out of the equation, the same as a squat. So, for example, when me coming down to the floor is the negative, me standing up, the explosive part is the positive. Coming back down to the floor in that negative, if I was to slow that down, oh my gosh, the rush of blood that you feel within your quads is unreal.
One way you can do this is to double the speed, double the time it takes to do the negative. So if your squat takes you 2 seconds to do the positive, 2 seconds to stand, to go back down into the squatted position, take 4 seconds. So if you're doing bicep curls and it takes you 1 second to bring the bicep up, make sure it takes you 2 seconds or even 5 seconds to lower, and these will make your muscles scream. And the next day you'll really notice it. Really, most DOMS, most delayed onset muscle soreness, comes from the negative part of the action, not the positive part. So it really does tear down the muscle in a really good way. It creates an adaptation response. Remember, our bodies are designed, our muscles are designed, really, they want to do the positives. And that's why we're hardwired mentally. We always think about, when we do a deadlift, is lifting the weight off the ground. But just as many muscles, if not more, are used in lowering it back down under control. So when we slow down the negatives, we're slowing them down, perhaps double, treble, quadruple the speed, the time it takes to do the positive, slow it down, and you'll see an adaptation response. So think in terms of explosive positive, controlled negative. If you really want to toast it, explosive positive, controlled negative.
Next, number 5, we're just going to start speeding through these a little bit because we're running out of time. Number 5, reduce your rest times. Reduce your rest times. Don't, if you're at the gym, don't come off the machine and go and have a 10-minute chat. Take 30 seconds, for example, in between your sets. For those who have been doing it for a little while, 30 seconds is ample amount of time.
Yeah.
Try not to take probably anything more than 2 minutes, I'd say, in between you.
I think it depends on what exercise you're doing. So bicep curls, you can just do it, put the weights down, pick them straight back up again and go in.
Sure.
If you're doing... The purpose of a rest, really, we want to, in the sort of training which most people do, is to enable you to catch your breath so you don't pass out. So if you're doing heavy squats, you might need 2 minutes.
I need 5 minutes, I think, between heavy squats.
And that's okay, but as soon as your heart rate's back down and your breath's back down, as soon as you caught that, go back in there. Especially if you're looking at burning some fat and you want to do some cardio fitness, by constantly going from exercise to exercise to exercise and compressing your rest periods down as much as possible, you're going to have a cardio effect as well, which is great. It means you're doing cardio workout at the same time as you're doing your strength workout, which means you don't have to go and stand on the treadmill for half an hour afterwards.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is possible.
Number 6, pre-exhaust before big lifts. Pre-exhaustion. We love pre-exhaustion. Pre-exhaustion means we're going to work the muscle out using isolated exercises before we do a big lift. So, for instance, if I was going to do squats, instead of doing squats first, now what we tend to do is we'll go in and we'll do the big lifts first. Instead of that, let's turn it around. What if I did leg extensions and did leg curls? What if I did all the other things first of all, then came to squats? I can tell you 2 things will happen. One is I will use a lot less weight in my squat. But second thing is that those squats will blow my wheels off. So another good example is shoulder press. So a heavy overhead shoulder press is a problem for many people. They have shoulder pain. And, the shoulders are not designed to be lifting up huge weights over our head. They're more designed for pulling than that push over the head. And so what you can do is do dumbbell laterals or rear dumbbell work or front raises beforehand, which pre-exhausts the muscles so that when you come to the big compound movements, all of a sudden you're not having to put 40 kilos onto the bar. You can do it with an empty bar and your arms are still feel like they're going to explode. So it's really much, much safer. As you get older, you're looking for how am I going to keep this safe? Pre-exhaust is a really good thing. You also warm the muscles up better, and so you're less likely to tear something or pull something. So pre-exhaust before big lifts. If you want some ideas about that, get in touch and we'll give you some ideas of what you can do before you do the big lifts that will pre-exhaust.
And lastly, but not least, avoid locking out. Avoid locking out. I'm not talking about locking yourself out your house. I'm talking, for example, if you're going to come back to squats, everybody loves a squat, avoid locking out the knees. So, for example, you're coming down to the floor and then you're going to stand back up again. Now, if you don't lock out at your knees and you keep them almost in that state of active.
Yeah, they're just soft. They haven't locked out. As soon as you actually lock the knee out, it gives the muscle a rest. The muscle turns off. So you want to keep it just, so you're 95% to a straight leg, but not quite, and you're going to keep the muscle activated.
Yeah, so it's almost like you shorten your range of motion just to keep it almost on the edge.
Yeah, bicep curls are another example of that. Instead of bringing the bicep curl right up, as you said earlier, to your shoulder, as soon as it's up to your shoulder, the gravity is different to the way it affects the body here. And so the biomechanics means that the weight's actually got a lot lighter. So if you bring it up to about, sort of 150 degrees, something like that, then you're going to find that the weight will stay, the tension will stay on the muscle much better. So this idea of not locking out, you can do the same with overhead press. Instead of going right up and then locking that out at the top. Now, if you're doing Olympic lifts, obviously you've got to lock out. But instead of take it up 90% of the way and then come back down, and you'll find that the muscles will scream for some rests. Avoid locking out.
So there are 7 advanced intensity principles that we've shared with you. Number 1, become more strict in your form. Number 2, squeeze the muscle as you can contract, mind-muscle link. Number 3, change the speed of the exercise. Number 4, slow down the negatives. Number 5, reduce the rest times. 6, pre-exhaust before big lifts. And number 7, avoid locking out.
And remember, always, all you're looking for is initiating this adaptation response. And as soon as you got that, go home, enjoy, eat, put your feet up, rest. This has been Tojo Fitness on the Tojo Fitness podcast. We're glad you've joined us. Do follow us on Instagram at Tojo Fit. You can also follow us on our YouTube channel, which I expect you're doing anyway. If you're not, press the little bell button and press the subscribe button. Please, that would help us very much. We look forward to seeing you and coaching you further.
Bye!